Well, good morning. It's another day, and today's the day, though, that we're going to go ahead and split this up, show you how to treat it. Your sourdough starter from the dehydrated state to now you've got it active. It's when active, it's come back down to the next morning or the next day or whatever you want to call it. It's risen and come back down to its normal state. So what we're going to do today, you see the jar, and this is just continuing on. This is what you do every day, or however you want to say it. Anyways, when I get up, I stir it up. Now, what I found, the best way I do it is when I'm baking something, which today I'm going to be baking bread and some pretzels and some bagels, I believe, because I take them to the farmer's market. And farmer's market is tomorrow, so I guess I really don't bake bread today because I get it ready and then I bake it first thing in the morning before I leave. So anyways, I've stirred up my starter. Yeah, you can see. I stirred it up so it's back down to its lowest size. What else you're going to need for the day, and I found out, is this starter will make 5 batches of leaven, which the leaven is just like if you have opened a package of dry yeast from the grocery store, you put it in water, and they say watch it foam up and then use it. Well, this is a slower process, but it's all natural, it's your sourdough, works every time. Okay, so you got your 5 jars. You need your scale. And like I said, I always use grams. It's just what I do. You can convert it to ounces, but I believe all scales have grams to them, so I would just use that because it's more accurate and it's more common in the world. So what we do, what I found out is, like I said, this makes 5 batches of leaven. So first thing I do is zero out my scale after I put my jar on so I know what I'm putting in. And then I put in 45 grams of starter. Now this is after it's fermented, you know, the overnight, it's been fed. Now you're ready to use it. Now if you're not ready to use your starter, but you need to feed it, you have to take off the equivalent of these 5. $45 grams there. All right. So the equivalent of the 5 at 45 be 180 plus another one would be 35, so be 235 grams. So if you're not ready to use the starter or bake anything, whatever, but you just need to feed it, you need to discard that 235 grams. But like I said, I'm going to be baking, so I'm going to make up enough for 5 batches. So they're like I said, 45 grams each. And I'll probably have this information in the description box too, just for reference later or whatever you want to do. 43, 44, come on, come on, 45. I zero out every time because these jars are not exactly the same. In fact, it's rare to have two of them the same weight. I also like using the wide mouth because it's just easier to get everything out and cleaned out and used and everything. But if you don't have wide mouth, the small mouth or the regular mouth definitely works. Just takes a little more finagling to get it out of there. 44, 45. Okay, so now I've divided up my starter into 5 different jars at 45 grams of starter in each jar. Now, first thing we're going to do is feed our starter out of this. And what I like to do is put it all back down to the bottom, scrape the sides of the jar off, and I don't know, there may be another 45 grams in there. It's pretty close. But it's not much. There's not much in there, but I've never had it fail on me. So, what I do, there again, zero out my scale. This is my wheat flour. And this is what I use for starter. I use a stone ground whole wheat. And you want to put 45 grams of wheat flour in. The 45 just seems to work for everything. Ooh, right on 45. Alright, then I also use my rye flour. Now I like the rye because it really activates the yeast. So I put 45 grams of rye flour in. Alright. Then, got to give it some hydration, right? And like I said before, theoretically 90 grams is what it should be because you've added 90 grams of flour. It doesn't work that way. With the rye and the wheat, which, like I say, I would, until you know what's going on, I would start with the 90. But in my case, I know that it takes 130 grams to hydrate this where I want it. Oh, come on. There we go. 131. Well, that's close. Alright. So now, stir it all up. You don't want any dry pockets in your starter. Okay, and this is the same process as what we did before when you're feeding your starter. 45 grams, and the water. Stir it up, then let it set for 24 hours as you watch it grow from this level, basically up to the top of the jar, and back down again. Now at any point, if you're not, I mean, this gets monotonous every day to either throw away that good starter, or try to bake it, five batches of bread every day. So usually what I'll do, unless I know I'm going to be baking in another day or two, which I do for these farmers markets, because I do 2 a week. So I have baking on, I start mixing dough on Monday, which today is Monday. And then I bake on Tuesday, go to the market. Then on Wednesday, I mix dough again. Thursday, bake and go to the market. So anyways, and then after that, so on Wednesday, I will take this same process, my 5 jars, I feed the starter back, and when it starts fermenting good, so it'll probably take 4, 5, 6 hours, something like that. Usually it doesn't really matter to what point, but I'll take this starter, put it in the refrigerator, and wait until the next time. I take it out a day in advance, so I took this out last night, Sunday night. Today's Monday morning. Okay? So it's warmed up, it's active again. Now it's going to redo its, I don't know, starter thing, whatever you want to call it. I put the lid back on, and we put it off to the side. You can see it's, do I have a mark on this jar? No. I don't have a mark on that jar, but if you look at where the level is, after a while, I'll show you again, it's going to be up, bubbly, ready to go. When it does that, like I said, at some point in the next 24 hours, I'll put it in the refrigerator, waiting on the next time. But then I take it out like 24 hours before I'm ready to make dough again, so that it warms up and starts getting active. All right, so now we're going to move on to mixing up your dough, because this starter is now going to do with this next video is show you the difference between using the rye flour and just a regular white flour, because I like the rye flour for feeding because it really makes a difference in how it activates. And I'm going to use a rye flour in one of these starters so that it shows you just the difference that I'm talking about. And today what we're going to do is take this starter that I took out of my main batch starter. I've separated it into 5 jars like we showed you in that last video. Now we're going to feed this. It's called 11. We're going to feed it, and we'll create something. We'll make some bread, or maybe the pretzels, or maybe some English muffins, maybe some bagels, something. So anyways, starting off here, each jar, and like I said, 45 is the magic number. I put 45 grams of raw starter in there, already fermented. I want to put 45 grams of wheat flour in these. And to speed up the process, I usually do it 1 flour mixture at a time. $45. Zeroed out every time. Like I said, this is stone ground whole wheat that I'm putting in. And And I believe just about any flour will do the job. But I'm going to show you a difference here in flours. One of these jars, normally I put in the whole wheat and then I put white flour in, the baking flour I use. But one of these jars, like I said in the last video, I'm going to show you the difference between the rye flour and the white flour and how it activates this stuff. So right now we're putting in the rye flour into this jar. And this, like I said, 45 grams. Come on. Sometimes my scale's a little slow to catch up. Alright. So there's 45 grams. We're going to set that one off to the side. I'll put I'll mark it. Well, let's just mark it right now. Okay, we'll put a big R on there. Well, I don't know if you can see it, but I can see it. Yeah, you can see it. There's an R on there for rye flour. Alright. And then the rest of the other jars, I'm just going to use the white flour. Because one thing about it, white flour is cheaper too. Alright. And what I'm using, found this at our, we have a, I don't know, it's a Mennonite type Amish store, grocery down in Shreve, Ohio, called Planktown Market. We buy our most everything there. And I found this flour. This is an unbleached, non-bromated white flour. It's a little heavier than just an all-purpose flour, but I like the way it makes things come out. Alright, so everybody's got their shot of 45 grams, 45 grams. Now, the water. And I use warm water, 90 to 100 degrees, just to get that thing going again, because the yeast likes warm. So just by putting in the warmer water, now don't go too much over 100 because it'll kill the yeast. But anyways, and like I said, I put in the 130 because I know that's what it takes. But you'll have to experiment with your own flour that you use until you figure it out. When you're measuring by grams especially. Okay, this is the one with the rye flour in it. Alright. Next thing you do is stir it up. I've got my Calphalon mixer, blade, spoon. But like I said, you could use a wooden spoon, you can use a Teflon nylon scraping tool, whatever you like to use. Not exact science here. The exact science is the starter. Like I said, this has been basically about 3 years in the making to get to this point, to figure this out, how everything is going to work, and I'm passing it on. Now these jars of leaven, after you get them mixed up, we're going to put a lid on basically to keep bugs and flies out, because as this starts fermenting, the flies really like it, especially the little gnats. I don't know where they come from, but boy oh boy do they show up when this starts fermenting good. Alright, like I said, I always scrape down my spoon into the jar, and then I take just a regular old canning lid, set it on top, and that keeps the bugs out. Alright, so that's our jar with the rye in it, and then we'll have the rest of them mixed up. These will set up on the counter. I'll show you that in a second here. And let them set for 5 hours. At the end of 5 hours, we'll show you what the difference is between right now, when you're just mixing it, and what that yeast does to activate this and make this level. Okay, our jars are on the shelf, which in this case is the shelf of the wood stove. Even though it's not on, it's out of the way. It's a great place to be. Anyways, you can see how much starter and flour mixture is in there. I've got the lids on, so now all we gotta do is wait. Alright, here's that starter we did this morning. You can see it's risen quite a bit from where we started. Now if you're not going to be making any pastry the next few days, then go ahead and set that in the refrigerator about that point, and it'll kind of hibernate until you're ready to use it. And then take it out the day before you're ready to use it, let it warm up, feed it just like the other times, and continue on. Alright, we are back. It's been about 5.5 hours. Got a little busy, but anyways. You can see how the dough, this leaven has started and risen. You know, we started off down here somewhere, so it's about doubled in size. And I told you I was going to compare the two. This one is made with the white flour and the wheat flour. This one is the wheat and rye. And boy, you can sure tell the difference. Not only in the way it looks. This one's got lots of air bubbles, lots of activity. This one's a little smoother, but also in how high it rose. That's why I like using the rye flour, dark rye, for my starter, because it just keeps it really, really active. But as far as I can tell, it doesn't make any difference in the way the bread works. So we're going to use this one, and we're going to make bread. Okay, so it's now the next day. We've separated the starter into those 5 jars that we did last night. We've let them set overnight. And if you look where we started, they rose up. You can see it on each one, how the rise was, and then back down. Now these are, I don't know, they're all called different things. Also called leaven, which is usually what I call it. It's a leaven. It's basically a mini starter that has been energized overnight by feeding it. We take a little bit of the main starter, put it in the 5 jars, feed it, let it set overnight. Next morning I make bread. So anyways, here's our main starter we started off with. That little itty bitty little bit of starter that we put in, we fed it with the rye and the wheat. and you can see it went way up there and is back down. These, of course, were fed with the white flour and wheat flour. Basically, they had more of the original starter in than the real starter, but as you see, using the white flour, it did not rise like using the rye flour. Other than that, same thing. Wheat, rye, white. So anyways, that's what makes a difference. So anyways, I take each one of these. I've got 5 jars there that I've separated. Each one of them will make a batch of bread. So what I'm going to do now is make something. I'll show you, take you along, and we'll show you where I'm at with it.